Hello, everybody. So, a few things that have been on my mind recently. Thought maybe be interesting discussion. I was reading an article where it was showing that Cuomo was saying that if people, I received all these complaints regarding people not doing proper social distancing in New York City, and if it continues, I will shut the city down again. You know, in this very authoritative way of speaking. There's a bunch of things I had in mind that came to mind when I read that, and I think I don't know where to start. I feel like if I start in the wrong place, I'm going to get myself in trouble, but hopefully you'll forgive me. I'm riding a bike after all. Just my random thoughts. So the first is, of anybody to be telling other people what they should or should not be doing, we need to keep in mind that we're discussing a man that, even though the Javits Center was made available as a hospital unit, as a place to take care of people, we're talking about a man that forced nursing homes to take back COVID positive patients. Now, if you take a look, there's this one PDF, and it would show deaths of from coronavirus as of May 12th. It was on NewYork.gov's website. It wasn't some, conspiracy theory website shit. What are you doing in the middle of the road, you fuck? Anyway, it was on their website, and it showed something like, tens of thousands of deaths from the elderly. And then if you look at people that are set age 18 to 44 with no pre-existing conditions, the number of deaths was 17. 17. And don't get me wrong, every death is a tragedy, but you gotta look at numbers. Over 10,000 for this group, 17 for this group. So when you have the comfort ship come up, when you have a hospital ship, when you have people show up to build a hospital in the Javits Center, and you still tell nursing homes that they need to take back COVID positive patients, my first thought is you can kind of shut the fuck up about this whole idea as to what I'm doing is so wrong. But aside from that, the second part of this is that when you look, something like 60% or more of the hospitalized cases for COVID, bike lane, cunt, were from people who were staying at home. It wasn't from people who were essential workers or out or any of that. It was from people who were staying at home. Which really does make you wonder. Was it that people changed their behavior that changed the numbers, or once they realized the severity, or was it the enforced government lockdown? And then, I don't even care if you ride in the wrong lane. Fine, ride in the wrong lane. You do you. Don't park in the wrong lane. That's just being a cunt. Again, if it's a bus lane and you're a car, or if it's a car lane and you're a truck, if it's a truck lane and you're a helicopter, you do you. Just don't park there. Fairly reasonable man. So when I see the numbers of people, when they complain that there are people that are, going out, not socially distancing, blah, 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 most of these people are people who fall in the 18 to 44 group, and they're likely people that don't live with people in the 50 to 80 group, which are the people that, Cuomo sent to die. So I don't particularly take it as seriously when he says these things. But above all, there was this one tweet, and I completely realized this is a troll account. I understand that it is a troll account meant for trolling. Holy shit, that was scary. But still, sometimes there are some essential truths that are not just funny, but they really just need to be pointed out. I don't care who it is that points it out. And it was something along the lines of, outside of the Brooklyn Museum, you saw thousands and thousands of protesters standing all right next to each other, and they were chanting. By the way, if you're chanting, you're more likely to spread droplets than you are if you are speaking. And they're all chanting, and and the guy says, thousands of people outside Brooklyn Museum chanting, "Can I take my kids to the park now?" And it's a really powerful message. It is a powerful message. So, and I understand why the protesters are protesting. They believe it is unjust if someone is allowed to murder a man in the street once he has already been subdued by the police, once he's already cuffed, once he is no longer a threat, once there's zero chance of him taking a weapon. Is it okay for you to then murder that man in the street? No. Passions are going to be inflamed. You can't tell, hey, listen, I need you all to go home because of Corona. Like, that's not going to work. Good fucking luck, Cuomo. Good luck to the cops. Good luck to anybody who tries to get tens of thousands of protesters to stay 6 feet apart from each other. Like, LOL. And yes, a lot of them were wearing masks. A lot of them were wearing masks around their nose and face. A lot of them were wearing masks around their mouth and not their nose. And like a majority of what I see are doing the standard New York thing, which is wear the mask around your fucking chin. Because that's going to do a lot. And put it above your face the moment a cop comes by and looks at you. Because when it's 77 degrees outside and you're yelling and screaming, that doesn't work. But above all, if you're protesting, if you're chanting, if you're screaming a statement, if you need that statement to be heard, if you want that statement to be heard, and you have 10,000 people wearing a mask, that's going to be a lame-ass protest. And I was discussing this with Annie yesterday. That's going to be a really lame protest. Having 10,000 people scream, "No justice, no peace, no peace." Like, what kind of protest is that? Why even leaving your house for that? Like, if you're going to have a protest, you're going to say no justice, no peace, no corrupt police. You're not going to say no justice, no peace. Because it would be, like, I'm not going to say that it's the best thing to do to go out and yell and chant in each other's faces, have interactions with police have those interactions with you, interact closely amongst yourselves without a mask. That's probably not the best way to go about avoiding the spread of the virus. But I understand why they're doing it. And once you're at the point where you've had tens of thousands of people take to the streets with their masks around their chins, not just speaking to one another as you would in a bar, not speaking, yelling at each other where there's gonna be droplets coming out of your mouth. If you've ever been by someone who's a wet talker, you know that it's disgusting, but if you've ever had someone shoot spit at you, it's freaking gross, but they do it. It's disgusting. When people are yelling and screaming and chanting and their passions are inflamed, you're going to get more droplet transmission. Once you're at the point where you've had tens of thousands of people take to the street, all scream at each other, what the hell are you talking about? If the cases go up, you're going to have another lockdown. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The whole point of having everybody stay at home, unless they were who the dictator says is an essential business, is to prevent people from coming into contact with one another and causing a spread. We're beyond that, Cuomo. Much of New York already had this virus by the time you shut down because you ignored it until you shut down far too late. That's why over 60% of the people that got the virus at a hospital, they said they had a virus at a hospital, were people who were staying at home. Then you already took the most vulnerable populations and forced them to be in the close quarters of other COVID-19 patients because you're such a great governor. I really see how you're getting that 70 to 90% approval rating. It's obvious to me as a Larry Sharp voter why Larry Sharp got like 1% of the vote and you have an 80 or 90% approval rating, obviously. The whole point of it is to keep people from getting infected. And once you've had tens of thousands of people take to the streets and spread their droplets amongst one another, there is no point anymore to having a continued lockdown. 3, 4, 5, 6 months in, there's no point anymore. You're just destroying the economy senselessly without reason. And I'm sick and tired of hearing this whole, you care about money over life. No, people care about living their life over the 0.4% chance of death, if you get it. Probably less than that once you wind up counting everything. I never believed in that 3% mortality rate, as I mentioned on a stream that I had on the live channel about 2 months ago, a podcast to do with my friend Anna. The main reason I never believed in those numbers, it's not because I'm a conspiracy theorist, it's because when I wanted to get a test for myself, because I figured, hey, I'm going outside every day, I'd be willing to pay for a test to figure out if I have this virus. I couldn't get one. It was impossible. First you had to know someone who was infected with it, but you can't know someone who's infected with it because the person that you know can't get a test unless they know someone that was infected. So it's this bullshit catch-22. The 72-volt battery really does make racing the train very easy. The train does not stand a chance against me. Does not stand a chance against me. Race the train, baby. And the train has been defeated. Man. So, the whole concept of... Yeah, I'll let this guy go. The whole concept of a mortality rate, the top number, is going to be the number of people who die, and your bottom number, the denominator, is going to be the amount of people that have the virus. The lower the bottom number, the lower your denominator, the higher the mortality rate. However, if your denominator is kept artificially low by a lack of testing and restrictions around who can get testing, that means that your mortality rate is a steaming pile of shit. And I'm not going to base my business's bankruptcy or whether or not I choose to close or based on that number. It would be silly. I respect science. I believe in science. I also believe that for science to work, you need to have data. And if there's a policy in place that keeps that data from being made available, then, what are you going to do? But, I mean, there is this ridiculous dichotomy going on here where you have... Okay, I get that you can't pedal, but can you at least put your motor on faster? Holy shit, I have my brakes on and I'm still about to bump into you. Go, mofo, go. People behind me are trying to pass me now. Oh, mother... Jesus Christ. Anyway. That was one lame-ass motor. There's this really interesting dichotomy where on one side it's, listen, you people really need to stay inside. You guys really need to stay inside. And then you have other people that are like tens of thousands of people taking to the streets, speaking loudly. And again, I'm not saying that they don't have a reason to speak loudly. Like, go on, speak your piece, protest. Something horrible happened. Make sure it doesn't happen again. Go, do your job. You know, with less of the whole rioting and looting thing, but still, I get the point of it. But like, once that has happened and there's nothing you can do about it, it's done. It already happened. And it happened for weeks at a time. Until 2 or 4 in the morning, in spite of curfews. This whole concept that a lockdown needs to be continued is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Because even if the lockdown was a good idea, even if the lockdown was a good idea, your lockdown was canceled. Your lockdown was owned. Your lockdown was defeated 110% by the fact that tens of thousands of people took to the streets, standing neck and neck with one another, yelling. And I'm not going to say they weren't yelling for a reason. They were yelling for good reasons. But in New York, and I'm not going to say that they were the only people. You know, you had a lot of people that were, playing basketball in the park and doing all sorts of other shit that they, like no mask and all that other stuff. I'm not saying that protests are the reason. But what I'm saying is that once you have a protest that's got that big, that it undoes your lockdown policy. So what we're talking about here is whether or not you want to have a lockdown policy, in addition to having increased cases of coronavirus, which is already baked into the cake. That's going to happen. 2 weeks from now, you will. This is actually going to be an excellent experiment. Because what you're going to see here, do not enter. Defund the police. I don't know. Am I allowed to say that? I defund that police barrier by the authority invested in me as an essential protester. But, this is one of the most interesting experiments you can have as to whether or not coronavirus is truly effective. Because it's not just letting down lockdown. Because a lot of people are saying, even if you get rid of lockdown, a lot of people are not going to go outside because they're going to be afraid to. People are going to change their behavior. You don't understand. You're not going to have people going outside the way they did before. Here, not only did you have people going outside again, you had way more people outside than usual. Because I was in New York City when there was Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown protests. It was nothing like this one. Nothing at all. Not even remotely close. You had more people outside here than you ever had outside on a normal Friday, Saturday night in New York City in the neighborhoods where people typically go to party and get shit-faced. So you have this amazing experiment that went on, which is, let's not only undo the lockdown, let's have more people go out in the street than ever before, and let's have them share their droplets with one another by chanting, by screaming, by whether it's you're screaming at a cop, get off him, or you're screaming at this person, what your point is, you're arguing, or you're protesting. Let's have everybody get in close quarters and spread droplets as much as they can. You're going to find out just how bad the virus actually is. Is this a virus that is as contagious, is as awful, or is it not? You're really going to know in a week or two when you see, because if cases don't flare up terribly, and you see, if people are not dying in the streets and all this 2 weeks from now, then you know that this lockdown shit has got to go. If people are terribly ill and they're dying in the streets, young and old, and the hospitals are completely overrun, then you know maybe you need a lockdown to continue. The other thing that you got to consider about this protest versus a lot of the others, I find it difficult to believe that the lockdown did not contribute to what was going on here. So, because, as I said, in previous protests, people protested, they said what they had to say, they marched. Every now and then something got out of hand, but nothing even remotely close to what happened here. I think that the extended lockdown is what flared up these protests to be as bad as they were, because you have this powder keg situation. You see, here's the thing. In order to get people to follow the rules of society, there's got to be the carrot. There's got to be the carrot and the stick. There's got to be a reason to follow the rules of society. So, if you're able to pay your rent, if you have some semblance, not even a lot, but some semblance that you're going to have some basic economic security, you're not going to be out on the street, your basic needs are going to be able to be met if you do your job, if you work, if you're all that, then you're going to possibly obey the rules of society. But when the rules of society tell you out loud, your property taxes still due, you still need to pay your property tax, you still need to pay your rent. Yeah, I know that we've deferred evictions, but that's just deferred eviction. That's not a cancellation of it. You still need to pay all of your rent, but you're also not allowed to have a job. Society is doing what society is telling you is, if you obey the rules of society, you are actually going to be more fucked than you would be if you didn't. So what's the point? If I'm not supposed, why not be a little rowdier in a protest? Why not loot this store and at least take some shit from the store that I could sell on eBay so that I could pay the rent that I'm not allowed to have a job to pay? You're going to have a lot of people that decide they don't want to obey the rules of society, or they're not going to adjust their temperament, their persona, as much as they otherwise would if there was a carrot there. So you have people that for several months were sitting at home wondering if their company was going to go bankrupt, wondering if the place they worked for was ever going to rehire them, wondering if the moment the moratorium on evictions is lifted, their landlord is going to have their hand out for their $7,000 because the city never canceled their property tax and the banks never canceled the mortgages. That's a lot of anxiety. And when you combine that anxiety with a feeling of intense anger and rage at something that happened, you're going to have a much larger thing to deal with on your hands than you are if you just had intense anger and rage. See, intense anger and rage is one thing, but when you mix intense anger and rage with intense anxiety and lack of certainty that you will be able to continue living indoors and continue paying for food, that is when people are going to act a little bit more rowdy, a little bit more out there, a little bit more... So I 110% believe that having a lockdown that went on for 3 months with no freeze in property taxes, no cancellation of rent from the city, contributed to the ferociousness of what happened over the past few weeks. But it really is ridiculous when you read that. He said, we need to continue lockdown. You have tens of thousands of people taking to the streets, arguing with each other, screaming at each other, protesting. Okay. I mean, at some point you just have to admit that it's done. This sunken cost fallacy thing of we invested in lockdown, we must continue lockdown. if you're in an area of the country where you had a lockdown and you did not have tens of thousands of people take to the streets in close quarters, you did not infect your elderly population by making little use of your Javits Center hospital and comfort ship, then fine, continue a lockdown. But in New York City, I laugh. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm actually 3 minutes late for a meeting, so I will see you all later. And as always, I hope you learned something.